Hey y'all. So I decided to jump on here and just talk through a few things. Some of my thoughts in regards to this land bank here in Baltimore. And so hopefully my phone doesn't die in the process. But so the land bank conversation is more complicated than I think a lot of people really know and understand. And the reason for that is there's a lot of different ways to get things done, right? And I think when we simplify things at the end of the day, everyone essentially agrees on a few things. And that is, one, there's a crap ton of vacants, right? There's a lot of vacants in Baltimore. And one of the challenges we have in the city is that the control of a vast majority of those properties, over 90% of them, are owned by individuals and LLCs. And so the city and DHCD currently only has so much capacity, so much reach, so much staff, so much whatever, legal means to get control of those properties. And so over the years, DHCD has been doing a better job of getting control of the properties and just wrapping their hands around what's happening on the ground in regards to properties here. So what the land bank seeks to do essentially is it's really supposed to be another avenue to streamline the process of getting control of vacants, right? And so the thought is that the land bank would have access to different funding sources. They build their own team and they just focus on getting control of vacant properties, right? That's kind of the bottom line. So my challenge, and so I actually went and spoke at the hearing and kind of went back and forth on whether or not I was going to do that at all. But my concern is this. We have the land bank and that conversation. We have the $3 billion plan by Mayor Brandon Scott, Build, and the Greater Baltimore Committee. And we have DHCD. And all of them agree on what the problem is. The problem is that there are a lot of vacants and they're individually or LLC owned, and the barrier to get control of those properties is high. And there's all of these other things in the background, like tax liens. There's all this stuff in the background that makes it difficult for those properties to change hands, right? We all agree on that, right? We all agree on it's going to cost a lot of money to acquire properties and get those properties out of those folks' hands. We all agree on that. We all agree that the process needs to go faster. We all agree that, this work needs to be done. We're all just essentially negotiating who gets to control it. Is it city control? Is it board control with the land bank? Is it state control with this special purpose entity? Or is it controlled by the city through DHCD, right? And if you know me, my big thing is we don't have the liberty of time to have pissing contests, excuse my language, over who gets to control what. We need to get the work done, right? And not only that, the amount of time it takes to stand up new entities and things of that nature, that stuff takes time. Do we have the liberty of time to play politics? And that's my concern. Probably more so than almost anything else, is how we don't have the privilege of managing this power dynamic of who can get the vacant house faster if it takes us 5-6 years to get started in the first place. This is exactly why we have Next Gen. This is exactly why we share on all of these platforms and have all these social media things. And I stop and I might not put on a lick of lipstick, but I'm going to tell y'all what's going on, because there is too many barriers of entry to education and understanding on what's happening. Not only that, with the land bank, specifically because I have been involved with Build in GBC and the Mayor of Baltimore City's plan for years. And DHCD, I meet with Housing Commissioner Alice Kennedy very regularly. And so I feel like I have a decent understanding of the plan and how to actually execute. To be honest, I was never, and this is no here nor there, right? I don't have to be involved in every meeting. To be honest, spare me the calendar invite. But I was not involved at all with the land bank. So I don't understand fully. I understand they want to get control properties. I understand how they plan to do that. My thing is, I don't fully understand how they plan on taking those vacant houses and get them to use and occupancy. Are we auctioning them off? Are we selling them directly to investors? Are we going to have preferred investors and developers? Like, how are we getting them from the land bank's hands into someone's hands that's actually going to take that house from vacant and dilapidated to a home, to getting a UNO? And so I don't have that information. I'm not saying that they don't have it. I'm saying I don't. And so for that reason, at the hearing, I didn't say yay or nay. Although I was called, we were called personally to testify and all that kind of stuff or whatever. And they wanted us to, whatever. That's beyond the point. I didn't feel comfortable saying yes or no. But what I do know is that had all three of those different planning organizations sat at one table together, all of the working group people, everybody, a big ass table, and we sat down and said, here are our ideas, here's our plan, we already agree on what the problem is, let's solve it collaboratively, right? Collaboration over competition. We don't all have to have our own thing, right? And I know everyone wants to solidify their own legacy, and that's fine and whatever, and whatever. But at the end of the day, all three of those plans are essentially trying to do the same thing in basically the same way. Is there value to splitting up the funding, the staff, the time, and now have these three entities competing for the same properties? Like, that does not make sense to me. And I say that as someone who not only does the work myself, but as someone who literally has represented and created a community, our Next Gen Accelerator, that is one of the largest residential home buyers in Baltimore City. We collectively buy most of the properties that these folks are looking for as a unit, right? And so, like, as one person, I can say that the community we've built over the years is probably one of the biggest, I can say benefactors, but really the biggest opportunity for these types of entities to be able to get the work done that they want to get done in the way that they need to. And I don't understand, and I've said this to everybody who would possibly listen, that we all just need to sit down and figure this out. Like, I get that this is a complicated issue for sure, because I do the work. But I also know and understand that the politics and this person, and we can't have this person, that person the same, and this person was, who cares? There's a lot of houses, there's a lot of work to be done, and without a holistic approach to how this happens, we're gonna miss it. Because the other piece of this is, yes, you can get a control of as many vacants as your pocket can allow. But if we don't have a holistic approach to what it looks like to take that vacant property and get a use and occupancy certificate, that means understanding process. That means how we are training and, really building up our capacity of our contractors and hiring our residents, and what's our permitting process? How many inspectors do we have on staff? How are we changing the narrative and marketing Baltimore City to make sure that there are a sufficient number of folks who are looking to buy and rent these houses that we're looking to develop? How many of these houses are being demolished? There's all of these conversations that have to happen so that we're not talking about just getting control of vacants just to have them, but how do we turn these vacant houses into homes? And it's not just buying the vacants. That is not it. And when it comes to even the strategies on how these different organizations or initiatives or policies or authorities or whatever you want to call it, their investors are likely going to be looking for a rate of return. And to get control of a lot of these vacants, they're going to be paying good money for it, right? And then we're wiping liens and encumbrances and trying to get those things out of the way. Like, how are these entities even going to make the return that they need for their investors? But whatever. I say all that to say, I am voting for, and I am all for whoever can actually get the work done and do it well in a way that helps me and everyone that looks to me or learns from me, or I coach and mentor, or I support to buy a lot of these houses to actually get the work done. Because at the end of the day, that is really all I care about. How do we actually solve this problem and get the work done? I don't give a doggone who signs the paperwork to say that this is the policy or this is the plan. I don't care necessarily if I'm at the table to make the decision myself. I just need, although I think I should be, because I do this stuff, right? Not only do it, but I teach it, I educate it, and I gets it done. But I just, the duplicative efforts and not just duplicative between the land bank and the role and responsibility of DHCD, but duplicative as in the land bank versus the land bank versus the Bill GBC Mayor of Baltimore City plan. So that's what I think. Like I said, I went up there and said specifically that I don't have enough details on the execution to say yay or nay, but I do know this. We would get much further through collaboration over competition. That was the bottom line. Because if we all sat down, there's a lot of smart people. There's a lot of people who do great work. There's a lot of great ideas. There's a lot of great funding sources. And rather than compete for who has the best thoughts, let's sit down and create the best plan. Holistically. Because we do need a holistic plan. Not just how do we get control of vacants, but how do we make sure that people who are buying the vacants actually can get them done. Not can we get vacants and then we have them auctioned off on, through an auctioneer that has the best marketing, where whomever, every Tom, Dick, and Harry think they can buy a house for $5,000 and never get it done. Baltimore City has too much of a history of poor decision making that creates waves of negative impacts for decades. We don't have the privilege of getting it wrong. And that's what I think. So, for those of you who are wondering, that is my soapbox. That's what I think. That's what I believe. I'm all for getting the work done. But the political stuff and, the push and pull, and, I personally went to Detroit and toured Detroit and talked about, their land bank and how that works, and have gotten some, not the best feedback for long-term how that process went. But, I'm for what is going to help support us in getting the work done and accomplishing the larger goal. So, that's what I think. I hope y'all have a good one. And we'll talk soon. Bye.